Without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. You know, these guys are our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, black child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow.
What do you do after you read? What do you do after you know all, right? And you can say that you're truly conscious. How are you putting what you know into action?
Hey. Welcome. This is episode 8 of New Black History Makers. We are live at the Good News Network and the station. I'm not alone, of course. I am joined by Sean and Christy. Christy has been here before, and I had to have her back for this conversation. But it is Women's History Month. If you can see on the YouTube, or if you're watching from Facebook, we got the little thing on the top so that you know it's Women's History Month. And with this being New Black History Makers, of course, we're going to be talking about Black women. So that's what the topic is for today. Just basically being a Black woman, not even necessarily in America, but just being a Black woman and in the different spaces that we live in and where we are. So we'll get into intros and all of that. But we're going to do our first little check-in. So if you guys watch the show or always listen in the beginning, you know that we always ask the general, how are you doing? And then I was reading an article and it was like, start to ask questions that are not just how are you doing, but other kind of questions. So we'll do the generic, how are you doing? And then we'll get into the other questions. So anybody can grab it.
How you doing? I'm doing good. I was saying earlier that the body is tired, but the spirit is strong. But yeah, overall I'm doing good. It's Friday.
Yes,
happy to be.
It is Friday. How about you, Christy?
I'm good. I'm good. Happy to be here as well.
That's good. And I'm good as well. Just winding down from the week. This is always like my last thing to do for the week. So I'm excited about that. So let's get into the second question. It is, and this was intentional, but second question is, what made you upset this week?
Oh,
yeah.
That's a good one. What made you upset? I have one today. Okay. Kind of made me upset, but not really. But I had posted something on Instagram and it was positive. It was basically telling people, because on my Instagram, I have it where I do a post, like a picture or a reel or a video or whatever, and then something motivational. And it just goes back and forth. So it's kind of like a rhythm now. I know they call it something, but I can't think of what that word is. So, So today I posted something and it was basically insinuating, if you've done something that you feel like you are not so proud of, or you feel like you want to quit or give up, don't do it, because there's always another day that you can push forward and be positive or whatever. But how I worded it was like a quote wise, and someone flagged it and said I was giving false information. Right. So I was like, what? So people kept on literally DMing me or sending me screenshots like, so you out here giving false information? So I'm like, what? So I finally took it down. But then I realized the reason why was because someone flagged it. And I don't know if they did it on purpose or accidentally. Yeah. But I put a little post up and I said, I wish you nothing but success, whoever flagged me. Whoever did that. But I was just a little like, what? Right. But yeah, that's basically, it wasn't nothing too bad this week.
How about you?
Yeah, for me, I went to Sip and Sonder one day this week. And there was an older Black gentleman that came in, and I saw him come in and you see people come in and you see them looking around to see who can I talk to? Who can I kind of engage with? And I saw his energy, and sure enough, he came and placed himself right near where I was sitting. Yeah. And I was a little annoyed because I was really just trying to get some work done. And I was like, oh, this man wants to engage in conversation. I don't really feel like doing that right now. So it frustrated me a little bit because he wasn't giving up. He was mad. He was just like, oh, what are you doing on your phone? And what do you,
Right.
And I was like, you know what? The Wi-Fi actually isn't working. Started to mess up. And I was like, let me actually just sit here and engage with this man and talk to him. And it actually turned out being a really beautiful conversation with him. He was 68 years old. We just talked so much about his life, his love life, his marriages, his divorces, his experiences with women, and just so many things. So it turned out to be a beautiful moment. But when it first started, it was like the New Yorker in me was like, no, please. I'm just trying to sit here and get my work done.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that for sure. Yeah. And so for me, yesterday, I was downtown and, I'm in the merch field or whatever. So I'm sampling stuff and I asked one of the ladies, and none of the people down there are Black, but I don't know what race she is, but I'm asking her if she can show me samples because there was like 4 different stores that I was considering buying from, but I only needed one shirt. So of course I was going to end up buying one of the shirts. So I come up to her. I'm like, can you show me your lavender and your purple? And she's like, okay. She hands it to me and I'm like, oh, this is not really what I want, but the color is okay. But I'm going to go look, down one more store and then I'll come back. So I went to a few more stores and then I came back to her. I was like, can you just show me the lavender and purple one again? And she was like, no, just tell me what you want. I said, I was like, you can't show me the shirts? She was like, no. I said, ma'am, I'm about to spend money with you. And she was just like, no, there's a shirt right there. And I probably shouldn't have done this, but I threw this shirt at her because I was like, are you serious?
Right.
I'm about to spend money with you and I'm asking to fill a sample. You sell shirts. Like if I ask for a sample, bring me the sample. Right. So I did that and she kind of like, I guess she got afraid. I'm like, you don't need to be afraid. I threw a shirt at you. And it was okay. So I went and took my money somewhere else, but that made me upset this week.
You threw a shirt. So.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm like, you're not gonna go. Like I do that. If I ask for something and I'm about to buy almost 100 pieces from you. You can't just bring me one. I don't care if I just came back. People are gonna be asking for samples all day, but God bless her and whatever she was going through yesterday. Yeah. But now it's time for a commercial. I keep talking about this. If you have a business or if you sell anything, you have a service-based business, this is a space for you. We want to advertise your product or your business here. We have packages. So please DM us at New Black History Makers and we can get you featured on here. I would like to think our show is pretty lit. We get quite a few listeners and the good news has a pretty dope following. So we want to get you some more customers. So hit us up at New Black History Makers to secure that spot. Now let's go into intros. Let's start with Sean. Just tell us a little bit about like who you are, what you do.
Yeah, who I am. Those feel big, like big questions in my spirit. But who I am, hi world. My name is Sean Lewis Green, at Lewis by Nature on the gram. I recently came back. I am a storyteller. I am a creator who is also coming out of hiding. I've been on a hiatus. I've been off the gram for like a year and a half and just like
for a long time.
Tapped out of a lot of social spaces for a while because I was in my bubble, which I think I need to do every now and then. In addition to being a storyteller and a creator, I am a facilitator. I facilitate Black mental health workshops for college students. I am also working with brands on their digital storytelling as well.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm a mentor. I'm a coach. I'm like your biggest cheerleader. I'm, rooting everybody on. That's me. That's what I do.
Yes, I love that. So then, Christy, you want to revamp us on who you are and what you do?
Yes. Hey guys, I'm back. I'm Christy. And from Compton, I like to say that.
Yes.
And so yeah, I'm the founder of youth-based nonprofit organization Children Striving Together, where we assist the youth with enrichment, mentoring, and tutoring. I think is really important. Recently, we've been moving more with our mentor program because I see that the youth need that more than anything. I mean, we can give them workshops all day, but who's really like cheering them on and making sure they're staying on the straight and narrow and introducing them to things that they probably haven't seen due to lack of or whatever. So I do that. And then I also have a business, The Power Legacy, where I help people start their own nonprofits. I do LLCs, but it's kind of on the back burner. I'm just focused on nonprofits now because there's so many nonprofits being born, but being born like the wrong way. So I'm trying to bridge that gap and make sure that they are implementing the right way so they can really get all the money that they need.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, shout out. Y'all should hit both of them. Well, Sean is just now getting back on Instagram,
Like
right?
literally this week.
Let me show her some love. Show Sean some love.
Yeah. So, last question as it relates to the intro for who you guys are. I know for Sean, you saying that you're a storyteller. I want to know like more about like what's your why, like why storytelling, or why was that something that you discovered?
Yeah, I feel like that's like a new discovery and like a new identity that I'm like owning in a public way like now. But I think it's something that's been there all along. And I think like my why for storytelling is because like we all have so many different things happening and going on. And very often, like when we're going through things, we feel like we're isolated. It's only us. We don't have anybody.
Yeah.
You might still make a post on the gram, even though you had a pretty trash day. But in the picture, you got the filter on, you shining, all that. But you might not feel that great. And I think my why for storytelling is just like being able to add another story to the mosaic that's of all the stories that are out there.
Yeah.
And hoping that someone will see the story and be inspired to do something. And I also consume a lot of other people's stories. So
Yeah.
I don't watch TV a whole lot, but I've spent a whole lot of time on YouTube watching and seeing what other people are doing there. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And then you want to tell us your why in terms of business, the kids.
I think so. Before I thought that I was just about the youth because that's what I've always done, from children's church to the nonprofit and things of that nature. But really, I realized when I started the Power Legacy that I'm not just about the youth. I'm more so about helping someone bring something out of them that they probably didn't either have the confidence in, or they felt like they were alone, or they just felt like they couldn't do it. I feel like I'm really a people pleaser. So when I see people say they just got a sheet of paper with a business name on it in mail and it warms their heart, or I see a kid that just was excited because they won $5. Like I had a kid that literally won a raffle and he screamed. It was really like worth probably $3, but he screamed up to the top of his lungs and he was like, I've never won anything in my life. This is so special. It wasn't even like he won like a trip or $1 million, but that's how he felt on the inside. So imagine if you just do things like take a kid to a beach, or you introduce an adult to a concept of something business wise that they never knew before. Like that's what warms my heart. So the why and the passion behind it is just being able to put smiles on people's faces in different ways, but they can see an accomplishment coming out of that.
Right. No, that's dope. That's dope for sure. So shout out to Devontae. He's in the comments on YouTube with the fire emojis. That's Sean's husband. I don't know. Devontae hasn't been on here. Danny has, but shout out to Giants Den and the amazing work that they're doing there. So this is another space. If you have a business, this could be a space for you, for us to help you advertise and get you some more customers. We are going to move on. Like I said, our conversation for today is being a Black woman. So we're talking all things being a Black woman. We're going to talk about some TV shows. We're going to talk about careers, relationships, just all of it. So I want to tap on what you said. This wasn't in my notes, but the people pleaser thing. I think being a people pleaser is something that we as Black women just like naturally grab a hold to. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I think we're shown that. I think, we get it through the examples of, at least in my experience, just seeing other women as we're coming up, trying to carry the load for everyone, trying to be, feeling like as if they need to be everyone's everything, and not necessarily taking the time and space to care for themselves first. Yeah, that's how I've seen it for sure.
I agree. Yeah. I think I think it's the feeling that you get. Like if you can help someone and you know that they're very appreciative of it, I think sometimes people pleaser gets a negative connotation with it, because you're helping everybody and people are running over you and things of that nature. But I think when people do take it for granted, or they do walk all over you, then that's when you have to really show like, I don't have to do this if you know what I mean? I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart. But I think naturally women we're nurturers in some sense. So we're gonna play. If I see somebody walking in and they have good energy and good spirit, and they tell me they're doing something, I'm automatically gonna be like, oh, well, how can I help you? I don't even know what kind of workload I got going on, but I want to be able to help you because you probably need it. And I think back in the day, people didn't have that, like those support systems, like how we can really shine with just a group of women that we are.
Yeah.
I don't know how many groups were going on back in the day, like with our grandparents and parents, but I think now we can like fuse this and really like go there with it. So I don't think that anything is wrong with being a people pleaser.
Yeah, and I don't think so either. I think what gets misconstrued or what is wrong about it is when, and that will be my next question, like when do people please us as Black women? I think that's the issue where it's, we can go and serve, everybody and be nurturers, but when do people say, well, okay, well, we're pleasing Black women? I don't know that that is necessarily a thing that I can like answer to.
Yeah. I think even with people pleasing, if you're people pleasing to the point where you are putting yourself in the back, where you're not able to care for yourself, you're putting your needs second. That's when it feels like it gets more harmful. Because you are literally stretching yourself beyond your capacity, beyond your desire, and sometimes even doing things out of obligation. And I think it's a learning process of learning how to allow people to show up for you, how to demand that you need that. It's definitely something that takes practice if you have been used to the other side of that.
Yes.
And it makes me think of just like historically, right? Like the origin of, or not, I don't want to say the origin, but when we think of Black women being brought here, like from Africa, and what they literally, there was not even a space or opportunity for them to be served because it was just Black women and Black men. It was just, you do. You're going to tend to the field. You're going to raise the kids. You're going to do that. So it's like, we've learned from that base, basically, of in order to be seen as like a worthy or a beneficial Black woman, you have to give to an institution that doesn't necessarily care about you. And it's taken a lot, I know, for me to dismantle what that means. Because it's like, if it's your origin should be pure, but ours, as it relates to like the soil here in America, it's not. So it's a lot of just like dismantling having to do with it, those situations. So let's hop into another question. One conversation that I was having with a guy, he brought it up and he was just like, do you think Black women, or do you think it's a privilege for Black women to operate in their like femininity? Like us being feminine and being able to just be like women, and not having to have like the hard exterior on. And he was just like, is it a privilege, basically? Like, is it something that we get to experience freely, or is it something that we're often having to like fight for or make space for?
I'm not sure. I kind of gotta let that one sit a little bit.
The feminine. And when he was mentioning it, it was, for me, it was like, yeah, there's not a lot of spaces where I get to be just like a woman or just a feminine being, where there are a lot of spaces where I walk in and I'm not sure if the people are going to be negative to me because I'm a Black woman, or if they're going to expect something of me. So I have to protect myself and not be fully giving of who I am. So for me, it was like, yeah, it is a privilege for me to be in a space with all Black women and being able to be accepted here, and for me to be seen by you, and me to be seen by you, and for me to see you. But there's not too many spaces that I'm walking into where this like code of being a Black woman is understood.
Yeah, I'm trying to process that like through the lens of being feminine and being a woman, because I think that there is a what do you not I'm trying to think. It's not just one thing, right? Just to be a woman doesn't necessarily mean that you are feminine. There are more masculine women. And so I'm just trying to, I think like that's the part that I'm trying to process, like, oh wait, I haven't actually sure.
That's like a loaded question, because then I start thinking about actual spaces, like, okay, places that I go, women that I encounter, or men, and then the definition of what feminine is. And dang, who asked that?
Right.
I forgot. It was on a show. It may have been here, but it was something that the guy brought up, and I was like, it's interesting, and it may have been from the perspective of him as a man feeling like he hasn't experienced, or he does not often experience feminine versions of Black women. Because even when we were here with Charles, his thing was, oh, well, Black female entrepreneurs, we sometimes have this issue with being wrong. And that was a thing where I was like, well, because most times we don't have the opportunity to be in spaces. So when we do get the opportunity, it's like, of course, we can't be wrong. So now we've developed like this negative, basically, interaction or feeling to being wrong, when it's like, no, there's some spaces where it's okay to not get something right. But you know, the world has just showed us that it's probably best for Black women to get it right all the time.
I think it comes down to like where I guess like where Black women feel safe, because in places where you feel more safety, then you have more comfort not knowing or presenting as if you don't know, or even asserting yourself, you know, but in spaces where you might not feel as comfortable, which can be a lot of spaces depending on the different identities that you hold, even on top of being a Black woman. That can definitely pose some challenges.
Yeah, for sure. And you brought up the mentioning of like safety and stuff. And I don't know, is that something that you guys feel like you have access to? Do you feel like you have a lot of safe spaces as Black women? Is it something that you desire more of?
I think more would be great. I think the safe spaces for me would really be like within my friend circle and people that I can talk to. I feel like those spaces are safe, non-judgmental, also transparent, gonna tell me what it is, because I don't want anyone just to be a yes woman to me. So those spaces. But then when you think outside of those, like networking or you think when you bring people together where they could just come and work and talk and have all of this, it's always like some high society membership based type of thing, and you don't see that a lot for us. And I think that we can have those spaces, but it's always that red tape that you got to still get through to get there. So I think for me, when it comes to safe spaces, I see it more in just my friend circle and the people that I associate myself with, but I don't see it where I can be like, you know what, I'm going to drive to so-and-so and this is my safe space. I think like with what you do, I think that you're creating those like through your workshops and talking about mental health and things of that nature. When you do things like that, then that allows someone to say, wow, I never even thought about that. And I want to address that. I want to do this more. How often can I come? Because yes, we can go to therapy, but everyone doesn't even have money to do that. So what about when I really need someone, but I can't afford it?
Absolutely.
Then what? So I think we need more. I think we need more.
I think for me, at least as of late, a lot of the work that I've been doing has been remote. And like I said, I'm coming out of hiding. So personally, I've felt very safe in the spaces that I've been in. And I think that I'm also learning in the spaces that I might kind of question, kind of stay my toe in, like, am I safe here? It also really depends on my willingness in that moment to show myself fully. You know, like, am I willing to show myself fully, regardless of how this might be received or perceived by someone in the space? So it's not always only that, but it does sometimes depend on my flavor of the day. How am I feeling about myself? Am I able to present myself in a way that that is fully me? And in doing that, you know, do I feel safe doing that? You know?
So then outside of like because you said like friend groups, and then when you were speaking, it's more of like an internal thing, but do we have safe spaces like in the workplace, or are there safe spaces outside of our like small or our groups that are like our identity groups? Do you guys think? Because I know for me, it's difficult to find. It's difficult to even find a safe place in a workspace, and I mean that's essentially why I think a lot of us have gotten to this like entrepreneurship kind of thing. Like, okay, I'm gonna figure it out and do what I need to do. But for me, it's been tough. Like, I don't think that I've ever really worked in a safe environment, you know, where, you know, of course, physically, like there's no threat to me, but where I knew that I was being considered. I knew that my emotions were being considered, and that I wasn't being considered or dealt with based on the perception of Black women. Because I think the perception of Black women is something that has almost everybody by a chokehold. It's kind of like, even if you are a Black woman, you have this perception of how Black women are, and then you treat them a certain way. If you're a Black man, if you're a white man, white woman, and they treat us as the perception is and not really as who we are.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that I've experienced just like in the workplace for sure. But yeah, any thoughts with that or?
Go ahead.
I feel like you seem like you had it.
No,
had
because
it.
I was
still bubbling.
I was thinking, and I was thinking when I was doing the 9 to 5, I don't think that I felt safe because I feel like when I would come into a workspace, and if there was like another like Black woman or something, it was like a threat though. It wasn't like, wow, I'm happy to see us here, girl. We the only three. Let's build. Let's da da da. It was more so, why you trying to come take my spot, or why you trying to come and get my job, or something like that. So I feel like that's when I did get laid off, because clearly that's why, well, that's a piece of why I'm an entrepreneur now. But when I did get laid off, I was like, oh, this will never happen to me again. So now let me do it on my own. But then you start building these relationships with other entrepreneurs. And even though we talked about the safe space in the corporate America, now you have to figure out if your safe space with these new entrepreneurs that you're meeting is safe too, because the same thing that's happening in corporate America happens amongst us, because the next woman want to be on top too, and this and that. And so you got to figure out, is this someone that I can trust? Like, is this someone that I can talk to about all of the things that I'm going through? Or are you going to be the next person too that's trying to like move me out to the side too? So it's kind of like, you have to, like you said, dip your toe in there and kind of see like what's going to happen, and then just try to use your discernment, and hopefully, you're in a good situation. So yeah, that's how I feel about, I mean, it's crazy to even think about that now. Like, that's not something that I would even sit at home and think like, am I safe?
Am I safe here? But you feel, but then your body remembers.
Yeah.
Your body is like, you know, how you feel when you walk into that office, how people perceiving you. I know for me, when I first cut my hair, I had relaxed hair, and then I was like, I'm gonna cut my hair, I'm going natural. And I went from like mid back length hair to like little Romeo fro back in the day, right? It was little tiny fro. And I got a lot of like feedback even from family members about like, oh, well, how are you going to get a job? Like, you're in the thick of your job search. Like, why would you cut your hair now?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? Right. And I feel like, but those were their ideas. They weren't mine. Right. And so because of that, I kind of started thinking like, oh, did I do this a little bit too prematurely? Should I have done this first? But again, it's recognizing that wasn't my story. That's not how I saw things. That was their perception that they were putting on me and trying to see me through. But I didn't see and experience it that way. So I feel like a lot of it also depends on, it's also about like, how are we getting access to be able to see ourselves fully and not feel like we have to be confined to the lens that someone else might have.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because I asked the question, what makes you upset in the beginning? Because I was in a conversation with somebody with Black people, and a Black man was basically, like saying something to the effect of like, oh, well, Black women are aggressive and that they're, we get angry and whatever. And I think oftentimes we have tried to defend that narrative like, no, we're not. And my comment, like, I had switched the way that I was going about the conversation. And I was like, and if I am aggressive, like, why is that a problem? Like, if you're not okay with aggressive people, then say that, but don't make it seem like being aggressive is something that is only a problem for Black women. And it goes down to the perception thing. Like, I can say that I know that I'm an aggressive person. I know that I speak with conviction. I know that I have certain power, but that should not be brought up as to why Black women are not desirable, or why we are not allowed to work in certain places, why we're not professional. Like, it's okay to be that. And then even the whole angry thing, like angry Black woman thing, like, it's okay for me to be angry.
Yeah.
Like, this is an emotion that everybody has access to. Everyone has rights to this emotion, and it's okay. But a lot of times we're not granted the space to be that. And oftentimes, even when we're angry, it's not like a thing where you just don't see. Like, we've been so conditioned to hold in our emotions that I don't even think we show our true like anger when it's there, So for me, it's just like, yeah, removing those perceptions and the perceptions of, well, Black women can't be angry because that's a stereotype, or Black women can't be, aggressive because that's a stereotype. And it's like, no, we we have access to those feelings too, you know, and that's something that I've been like going back, not even back and forth, but just trying to give myself more grace in, and then in those conversations, because that's usually what it is. We'll be like, oh, well, other women are, you know, aggressive too. And it's like, no, we can be that. Like, it's okay for us to have negative or whatever traits that are not the most desirable, because not everybody is desirable at the end of the day.
And also, who are these people that we trying to be desired by?
Right.
You know, like who are these magic mysteries, secret people that we're trying to be desired by? You know, like it's really about how you feel about yourself, how you feel like you're moving in your community, and of course, you have people in your circle. Hopefully, that can be a mirror to you and show you, you know, different things about yourself. But like, be desired by society's definition,
right? Even like with you saying that you cut your hair because you wanted to cut your hair. No one is like, let me, you know what? If I cut, oh wait, will I still have a car? Will I still have somewhere to live? Will I still have a job? Like, no one thinks that. And then other people come and put their own notions on something and like, well, now you're not gonna, or you're gonna. I feel like that's just a crock of doo-doo.
Yeah, it's definitely something where I think we've moved a lot, because even with me, like my hair is like mainly black now, but in 2017, 2018, that's when I started dyeing it. And I had not gotten my hair dyed before because I was like, I work in schools and I don't want them to say anything. And now that I get my hair dyed, I'm just like, why was I, you know, it's society. It's that limiting belief that Black women cannot do something outside of the norm. Like, your hair is already kinky. Like, your hair is already thick. You know, it's already big. So why would you add something to it? And it's like, why does that matter? Right. Because I literally want to. And, you know, yeah, that was a thing for me. And that's why I did getting my nose pierced. That was another thing. Like, oh my God, you know, I'm going to work here and I'm going to do this. And we have these like hangups. Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't want to get too much.
And then you see somebody walk in with pink hair and tattoos all over the place and clothes like don't look like nothing. And it's like,
they're artsy, they're creative.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're looked at as, oh, the ratchet or the you know, defiant, or you just don't want to abide by the rules. And it's like, why can't I be artsy with my stuff?
I'm artsy in my own way.
And I think that's something that we as Black women, starting from being a Black girl, we don't get the opportunity to even experience like our childhood oftentimes, because, you know, when you go into a space, I know we've all had the conversation where maybe something happened at school and you're like, well, that wasn't necessarily fair. And your parent probably said something like, well, you got to work twice as harder because you're a Black girl.
Yeah.
And you walk around looking at people like, I got to work harder than you. I have to work harder than you. And we take that on instead of just living life as a young, you know, Black girl. And I think that translates definitely as we get older. If we don't dismantle those things, it definitely can grow into something that's unhealthy.
Yeah, those are like things that, because we also have to think about the complexity of our history and those things being passed down because they were things at a point that protected us, right? That helped us to thrive, that helped us to move. And just thinking about where we are now, we have the opportunity to take those things off, to say like, no, actually, I don't need this. I don't want this. I'm not going to do this to move through. But it's complicated because those things that are being told by like maybe some of the older generation, those are things that might have kept them alive and kept them able to feed their families, you know? So everything's just always changing.
Yeah.
It's always
things are changing, definitely, for sure. So I want to go into, we were talking about Bel Air a little earlier, and I want to talk about, if you haven't watched the show, I don't care if they're not sponsoring or not, but it's a good show. I love it. I love Fresh Prince of Bel Air. So to watch Bel Air now, it's a really good just change of scene, basically. So I want to talk about the nuances and the issues between like our generation of women and the older generation. And I think the older generation has their gripes with the generation before them, but there's always been this like disconnect, or it hasn't been the easiest of relationships between the younger Black woman and the older Black woman of whatever generation, you know, we're talking about. So on Bel Air, if you spoiler or whatever, and not even really, but there are nuances between Hillary and then Aunt Viv, where, you know, I feel like Hillary is more so in this trying to figure out what life is, because life is not conducive to the I'm going to work 40 hours a week at this one place and I'm going to have a job for 20 years and I'm going to get great benefits. Like, that's not what we're doing, now. And it seems like Aunt Viv is not necessarily understanding that new switch. She's like, I want you to get something that looks like what me and your dad did.
Right.
So what have your experiences been with, whether it be family, workplaces, working with older Black women, but just that like nuance of like, okay, this is a struggle relationship here, and you're a Black woman, and I know we're supposed to be in cahoots, but it's not giving.
Yeah, I think with that, there is the struggle, but then what I notice is sometimes the opinion gets changed depending on who the friend is and what they think. Like on Bel Air, how she felt about what her daughter was doing and all of that, and upset because the colleagues and the sponsors and all of that are not going to be okay. But then when the friend says, "Oh, Hillary, I agree with you. What you're saying is, yes, talk about what you're talking about," without giving all the show away, but talk about what you're talking about, then Viv sees it in a different light.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I think that we, the younger generation and the older generation, of course, we think different because they're thinking back to what their parents were doing. And one thing that they didn't do was question anything.
Yeah.
When our parents were younger, you didn't question your grandmother, big mama, or whoever, because you just knew not to do that.
So.
And because I said so, and you didn't care to ask, but why? But now this generation, we're in the whys. We're like, wait, what? You guys sleep in separate rooms because of what?
Oh,
but why? Why?
Uh-oh.
You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
You say y'all sleep in separate rooms because of what? Because I've been wondering.
I have friends that's what happened, and I never understood. I'm like, okay, so this is a roommate thing. I was confused to it, but of course, when you only have that income and you have to live together, that's what they did. But we're like, oh, well, I guess I'm gonna be living in my car until I can figure it out.
That's good.
So I just think that I think that what I love about our generation, I don't care what they want to say about the generation X, Z, or whatever we are, I can't even remember. But I love the fact that we do question things, and even though we are afraid at times and we don't know what life is gonna throw at us or where we're gonna land, we will figure out like, okay, let me understand why this doesn't make sense, and let me try to give it back to you, mom, or you, granny, so that you can understand it. And then they're going to do what they want, because a lot of the older people are just stuck in their ways anyway. So that's what's going to happen. But I just think that I think it just comes from, I think all of it is fear. It's just fear. I think that's the biggest thing for the older generation.
Yeah.
Fear if you change something, even like in the churches. Yeah. If you change the way that everything was written, the church is going to crumble. We won't have it anymore.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, that's real.
I went like a million places right there, but
that was good.
Trying to be right there.
Yeah, I think that social media and us having, I feel like not even just social media, but the internet as a whole has allowed us the space to be able to have access to so many different things. Whereas in the past, it might have been, oh, this person told you this, auntie, whoever told you this, or grandpa, whoever said this, then that's just what it is. And you almost don't really have places to go and fact check that, see if it's something different. But right now, you can tell your kids something. I tell my daughter something, and I'm sure she's online like,
Mama's not telling the truth.
Said this, but let me go check and see what's going on, you know? So even just like the time that we're in with having access to the internet and being able to have access to so many different like ways of living, so many perspectives, literally with a click of a button. And sometimes now you don't even got to touch nothing to get to that. And I feel like that it would be irresponsible to not mention the role that plays and how we're able to move, and like why we also feel so comfortable saying but why, or like but hold up, because this person over here that I just saw, they ain't doing it like that. So I know that's not the only way. Right. You know? The internet is changing things fast. And even as a mom, I'm experiencing that, seeing that with my 12-year-old. Yeah. Like, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm getting older. Yeah. Oh, my way of thinking is very much in my way based off of my experience, but things are changing already. Yeah. Like, I had to wrestle with myself about her having like screen time and like having time limits on screens, because I'm like, oh, she doesn't need to be spending that much time in the virtual world, But also, kids are already making money on
Yeah.
YouTube and
Oh,
on so many
yes.
different
Yeah,
things.
for
And, you know,
sure.
and this is how a lot of people are, that this is an
Right.
industry. This is a career field
Yeah.
now. So it's like, yo, the game is just always
It
changing.
is.
Yeah.
What's the little boy name? Ryan?
Ryan, I
The
don't
little
know.
boy that he likes makes
opening the gifts and stuff.
yeah, like
I
he
think I know who
makes
you're talking
so
about.
much money, and I'm like,
Yeah.
these parents are like, they don't have to do anything. You thought that the kids didn't have to do anything because your parents had
Yeah.
money. No, the
Mhm.
parents don't have to do
The
anything. 'cause
parents are living
kids-
off the kids.
Yes.
Yeah,
very
for
So
sure.
that is so true. It's definitely changing.
Always changing,
Yeah.
and it happens right before your eyes. Like
Mhm.
we went from, I know my first phone was a Nokia in like
Yeah.
8th grade.
Little
It
chirp
had
chirp.
Snake, no color,
Oh,
no
yeah.
camera,
Right.
had a little belt clip. I still
Yeah.
want one now, low key, honestly.
Snake was the game.
Snake was the game, but now it's like phones have video. You can do, you can
Mhm.
work from your phone. You don't even need to have a laptop. It's more
No.
convenient,
Yeah.
but you can still do everything from it. And like,
Yeah.
it's like everything has changed.
When the prices were going up on the phone, I remember I was like, I would never pay $500 for a phone. And then when the iPhone went up and they were in the thousands, I said, I would never pay $1,500. Are you crazy?
Mhm.
But look
at
what
me.
phone do
Look
we
at
have
us,
right now?
right?
That's just crazy. It's crazy to
Right.
think that your phone costs more than what you pay rented.
Mm,
Yes.
Like that's
crazy.
and we buy it. We can't wait for the next one to come out. Like what?
Mhm.
And then we halfway buy it because we really, all
Right,
of us ain't really buying it.
right.
We split it up over
We're
a couple of
financing.
months.
Put on the plan.
And then we upgrade again.
Yes, no, for sure. I'm gonna
Exactly.
tune into these
Oh wow.
comments.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Shout out to Gamma. He's always listening. We appreciate you.
Yes, we do.
But what does the new Viv do? She quit her dreams to help her husband and his career, but I don't remember what she does.
She's an artist.
She was an art teacher, right?
Who lost
She's
it,
an
but is trying.
artist.
She's
Yeah.
an artist.
Yeah, so she's trying to get it back.
Back.
Yeah,
Mhm.
people fear. Shout out to Mysterious Jax. People fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
He said, "F this, insert anything." Big facts. Fear what we don't understand, and fear change in general. So, if you're listening on anything else, we're talking about the comments from the app. If you don't have the app, go ahead and download it. It's the Good News Radio Network app, I believe. You can download it there. Mysterious Jack said, "I can't even be mad when my nieces question me because that's how we raise them. We raise them to speak up and
Yep.
question things they don't understand."
That's facts.
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
said, "So as their Thea, it's my job to communicate and explain why things are happening." And then the last comment from DJ Gamray, "We have the world in the palm of our hands." So to Mysterious Jack's comment, that's like really, and you mentioned the church, and y'all know I probably mention it in every show. Y'all know that I'm churchy, y'all know that I'm a preacher's kid. So that there's a huge conversation around why our generation is not in the church. And a lot of that is because they weren't able to provide answers once the schools were able to show us different things. And then once we were able to get our hands on social media and the internet and we were able to type in our questions, they weren't able to give us answers as to why this may not have been in alignment with what we believed in, or this may not have been in alignment with what, the Bible says. And the problem isn't that there are not answers, it's that they aren't equipped enough to give the answers, or they're not willing to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, let's go see.
Yes.
And I think that's even outside of the church, it's something that when we talk about the struggles between Black women and of the older generation and the younger generation, where they feel like, well, I worked so hard to get to this space. And then they see a younger Black woman who maybe didn't have to work as hard, right? But because of them, because they, were the trailblazers, we were able to come in after them. There's this kind of like disconnect there. And then there's also like when you're asking questions like, well, why did they tell me that I can't wear my hair like this? This doesn't seem right. And she's like, when they told me, I just said, okay. And I just came to work the way that they wanted me to come. But it's like, that doesn't fit with me. And I think there has to be a real conversation, because you mentioned the like a married couple sleeping in two separate places, right? Well, what does that do to you as an individual, especially for us as women? I think that would really create a separation between ourselves, where we feel like we love this man or this is our family, and we don't have that intimacy with the person. Or as women, and we want our hair to be a certain way, but we know that every time we get up to go to work, our hair has to look the way that they want it to look. And I think we're not okay with sitting with that division with ourselves anymore. Like you said, I will sit in my car before I deal with somebody else's BS, and we're just not okay with dealing with the internal division. And maybe they didn't have access to knowing what the absence of that internal division felt like. But this generation, I think we're a little more like, all right, we're going to do something.
Yeah.
We're gonna get it together. We're gonna figure it out, and then y'all can do what y'all do after.
Yeah.
And I think also think about understanding the entire concept of something. So like how you just said you're a preacher kid, and the reason why the young people are not in the church and things of that nature, because a lot of things can't be explained. But for example, we'll take, this is using a scripture and then showing how it relates in real life. You'll take a scripture, let's say it's Matthew chapter 5 verse 7, and you read verse 7 and you're like, it says whatever it says, and then you're basing your understanding off of that, but you didn't read anything that came before nor after. And I think we do that a lot in general in life. So someone can walk in and be like, oh, she's a prostitute, and then you could be like, ugh, that's gross, that's nasty, but you don't even understand, actually she was raped when she was younger, and this is what happened, and she had no family, so she was living on the streets, but then she found this pimp, and this pimp said, I could have you living somewhere, so but in order to live you got a prostitute, but it was better than living on the street, so she did this, and that's how we got to this. I think we don't ask enough questions to understand the full picture, and neither does the people that came before us. Because if you understood everything as a whole, then you wouldn't have that prejudgment as to why this is right or wrong. Like, get the whole story, even the whole living in 2 separate beds or whatever. Where did that come from and why? All we see is what we see. You're sleeping in this room, you're sleeping in this room, but you're married. So what happened? But you don't know. You just, and then the rumor goes, oh yeah, they parents sleep in separate rooms all the time. And then you just thinking it's the normal thing. But where did it come from? Like, what happened to make you guys do that? So I think we need to like stop pinpointing and taking pieces of something, but get a full understanding of like what's really going on. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you want to add? No? Yeah, I think that and that's Bible too, and all that getting understanding. So it's like we do need a better understanding of what is going on. And I think that also gives us room, because you mentioned it, I forgot what you mentioned, but it gave me this like thought of an aspect of grace, right? Like the people that came before us, they're operating off of their own experiences.
As we all are.
Yeah. And I think we're really in this like very important space with our generation, because like you said, we're affecting the younger generation, and we're having to be gracious to them and saying, okay, well, you know, maybe the screen time is not always a bad thing. Maybe we can be a little more intentional with it. And then with the older generation being like, okay, you're just not understanding what's going on. It's not that you're trying to be judgmental or you're trying to be hateful, but you're just not completely understanding. So we're like in this revolving door, basically, you know, of grace, because it's like, we don't want the younger generation to feel what we felt from the older generation. And then we also don't want the older generation to feel like we don't need them or we don't want them around.
Right.
So it's kind of just this thing of like literally being understanding of everybody's point, you know, and then, you know, hopefully they'll be like, oh, the millennial generation helped our community out a lot, you know, or something like that. But it's a revolving door for sure.
Yep. It's for sure always happening. And even when you think that you're being like, you're progressive and I understand and I'm tapped in, not really. I'm 30. I'll be 33 this year. So I have no idea what the experience is like for a 16-year-old or someone just starting high school and like having access to Instagram. I wasn't on no Instagram. I had a MySpace.
Yes,
MySpace different, but I couldn't get it on my phone. I had to get it on my computer when I got home. Like, you know, so there are so many things that are different.
Even the pandemic.
It's just happening. Yes.
Like, what if we had to deal with the pandemic when we were in the 5th grade, though?
Right.
But when we were looking at encyclopedias, though, like that's how you were doing your research papers. Imagine like Zoom didn't exist. So how would we really, these kids that are dealing with this right now, it's like, I couldn't even relate. We can't because we didn't go through that. Like it's just different. Yeah. So I agree with you.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but let's also tap into the pandemic thing. What was that experience like for you? Because we're almost 2 years removed from that. That's crazy because I feel like I remember the weekend where everything shut down for real. It was like March 12th or something like that.
It sure was.
Where I was like, oh, we can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like okay. Right.
Yeah. Like that's how I felt.
Because it was a lot of stuff was going on. And I was like, well, what do they want us to do? They keep putting out these numbers and telling people are getting sick. I'm like, well, what do we do? And they're like, are we closing everything down? And I'm like, Oh,
the,
this
the
is
meat was
new.
disappearing and the
Everything
toilet
was
tissue.
gone, and you couldn't go nowhere. The freeways were empty. So we're 2 years removed, literally.
Yeah,
It's
next
March.
week is 2
So what was that experience? I mean, being a Black woman, being or whatever, just what was that experience? What has it brought you to now?
Oh, I left my full-time job like about my last day was like the 28th of February, the 27th of February.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I have all these plans. I know what I'm gonna
Mhm.
do. And then everything shut down and I was like, oh, this is different. Right. So like looking for work, not really a thing in the way that I had been planning for it to go. Also I live here, but my whole family is in New York. Right. So like my roots, everybody is in New York. I can't get to them in a way that feels safe. Like I'm not flying around. There was a point when it first started where it felt fun actually, where it was like kind of quiet.
The first 3 weeks, that's how I felt. I
It
was like, thank
oh,
you.
wow.
I need a break.
I don't have to go
Right.
anywhere. I don't have to
Mhm.
see anybody.
Yeah.
I can just like read and like be here on the balcony and just like do
Yes.
these things.
Then it got scary.
And then the days just got even longer. It was like every
Mhm.
single day was on repeat. And
Yes.
then on top of that, then virtual learning starts. And virtual learning was not the same.
Mhm.
Classes are supposed to be an hour. They pop out a half hour. Oh yeah, we got out early today. Oh, okay. So I guess I got to entertain you now, right? Okay. So yeah, it was very different. Mad love to all the parents out there, or caretakers, all of those folks who were doing the heavy lifting, lots of heavy lifting during the pandemic, and also folks living alone. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I think I'm honestly still decompressing from a lot of things that happened during the pandemic.
It was, for me, like she said in the beginning, I was a little excited when I found out that we may be shutting down because I was always on the go, never had rest, nothing. So I was like, yes. So literally, I think from the day we shut down to like April 1st or 2nd, I was like, okay, now it's time to start doing stuff.
Yeah.
But then everything for me was based on events and so I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I can't have an event. I was like, I was hoping, like I kept saying, okay, May 15th. We thought May 15th was the date.
Yep.
And May 15th turned into, when did we just open? Last year, the end of last year or something. And we still not really like that. So it was a little scary at first, but it also allowed me to take on some like key issues that I was dealing with on the inside, like actually facing them and figuring out things because now you're by yourself and and you're alone and you're trying to work through things, but also you're trying to figure out like what's next for me, especially because we didn't know what was going to happen. So they're like, if you're not utilizing the digital world, I don't know what you're gonna do because what if this is our new normal? So it was really scary, especially not having work. And I used to sometimes drive Lyft, wasn't doing that. So it was like, but you still got to pay these bills. The reliefs in them was not out like that. So you still have to pay your bills. Your landlord is not telling you can't pay rent. They don't care about that. They still have to pay their mortgage. So it was really scary and tough, but it was even tougher to see all of the people, and shout out to our first responders and stuff that were in the hospitals and dealing with all these deaths and family members that were actually dealing with deaths, whether it was actually COVID or it was just respiratory problems, but it heightened because of COVID. Like that was just scary, like seeing so many. The numbers probably were fluctuated, but just to know that this was because of a shutdown, it was scary. But then again, the upside to that was the assistance that you did receive if you did get anything, or just being able to really hone in on your craft and like expand that. So it's like cons and pros and all kinds of other stuff.
It's funny because you mentioned the like relief and stuff. I had interviewed somebody probably in 2020 here, and a Black guy, and usually with the podcast, I would ask at the end, what's a new Black history making moment for you? And he was like, all these PPP loans and he was like, unemployment or whatever. He was like, I ain't never seen my people on like this. And it was like such a real genuine moment for him. I was like, that's your new Black history making moment. He said, yeah, nobody that I've seen has ever won like this. And I was like, it was just so funny. But you saying that made me think about that. Like,
I hear a lot of people say that too.
I mean, we have different experiences or different things that we can call things too. And there were a lot of people who were getting a lot of relief and aid Yeah, and there's people who
Yeah.
demonize him for it, but my thing is, hey, if you were able to get it and you get off, kudos to you, or if you did not go through an illegal way to get your money and you did get some relief.
Oh yeah, those people.
Like go
Yeah.
ahead,
Kudos.
get what you get and do your thing. But people was living.
They
People were
was.
living.
Yeah.
I'm like,
We saw it.
I'm like, you in the pandemic and you
Everybody.
in Australia.
Melrose was
Right.
out of this world. I ain't never seen that many black
I
people
said,
just shopping on
whoa,
Melrose.
right? During the pandemic with nowhere to go.
Right.
Nowhere
and
to go.
traveling.
Well, you gotta get your outfits for all the challenges, all the
That
Right.
true.
Because people was drunk,
'Cause
reading scriptures.
I did challenges, and I'm
was
like, what
just
am I doing?
working out, like doing push-ups. It was just so
It
much.
was a lot. Take
It
a
was-
shot, see a shot.
Right.
Right.
It was really a lot. It was an interesting time, I know, for myself, because I can't be, I went from, and I feel like my life is just now getting back to what it was before the pandemic. Like literally 2 years, like I'm like, okay, now I'm picking up from what happened in 2 years, but the business there were some necessary things that needed to breathe so that the business could kind of grow, and the business has did what it's supposed to do.
Mhm.
Now I feel like it's picking back up. In terms of like our events and stuff, because that was a thing for me too. We did a lot of events. So that was a thing that had to shut down. The merch was able to get, be to where it is now. But I had to kind of take the rest, especially physically, like with my body. And then that's something we can get into too, is like the physical wellness of like ourselves. But I've talked about it on here before, but I have rheumatoid arthritis. So that is something that, I'm dealing with every day. But during the pandemic, the 2 years, it got worse. So the going into the pandemic, I remember I was about to start getting treatment. I ended up denying the treatment. And then now they were just like, okay, if you don't get the treatment, like your body's going to really deteriorate basically. And I was like, okay, so I ended up getting it, but now definitely in a better space. But I was not going to be able to move the way that I was moving before the pandemic if the pandemic didn't happen. Like I needed to be at home. I needed to be resting.
Yeah.
I needed to have a schedule that was like all those months where we were at home, like my body literally needed to be still.
Yeah.
So it's something like I get it. I promise you I get it that the pandemic has not been great for everybody, but you take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just like I was working, I was coaching, I was doing all these things, and my body was like, yo, nah. Like, I'm good on this. And I think, even as Black women, we don't always listen to our bodies, or we don't always go to the hospital, when it's and there's a myriad of reasons why we don't, but that's the truth. So the pandemic really helped me to sit down, because there was nothing that I could do except for if I wanted to get in my car to go drive to the beach and look at the water, that was it. But they wouldn't even let you walk on the sand.
Right.
So that was it. But I needed to be still. Like, I don't even know if I would have been able to keep going, so that was my like experience with it. But as far as like the physical health and stuff outside of the pandemic, during the pandemic, how has your experience just with that been as a Black woman?
Prior to the pandemic, I was going to the gym, like not every day, but like almost every day. And so gyms closed, and I was like, this is interesting. But I was like, well, you have a mirror, and you do have some of these things that you do use in the gym. So I was able to make a space in my home where I could still keep up my fitness.
Yeah.
And I feel like it wasn't even about like being fit. It was about like working out for me is like, that's my mental health moment. Like that's when I just get to focus on me, tap in with my body.
Right.
I feel like that's when my soul and my body feel connected, like they feel tethered very much in that space. And I learned how to do that at home. I learned how to do that at the park. I started bike riding. I started roller skating, things that like I wasn't doing consistently before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then back into now, gyms are back open. The masks have come off at the gym, which I'm not as excited about. But yeah, working out, like is really more so about like having that me time.
Yeah.
That's the time where my phone is on focus mode. I'm not worrying about text messages. I'm not worrying about emails. I'm really just tapping in with myself and my body and just like being all up in my insides is what it feels like.
Right.
I feel like I was the opposite. When
Like-
the pandemic happened, I gained so much weight. For one, I was eating everything under the sun. I was not working out. But then, because I had started to do the Nike run. That was like, I was I don't
Before the pandemic or
before.
Okay.
Like it was in January and the run was supposed to be in April and then shut down in March. So I don't run, but me and my friends were doing it, and then the pandemic happened. So we all stopped running. But then I kind of would do it sometimes. So I wasn't really working out a lot until I started looking at myself and I was like, listen, this is just no. So then the bike and the skates, I tried to get the bike for like almost a year because they were sold out everywhere.
Yeah.
Skates were sold
Sold
out
out,
everywhere.
yes.
So I couldn't get anything. But then 2021, I was able to get a bike and skates. So now I do have a trainer. Shout out to Danny.
Yes.
Follow Through Fitness.
Right.
Okay. I train with him 3 times a week. And I was literally just telling him, everything is different for me now because for one, I'm a little shapely, just a little bit. So I like what like these workouts are doing, but I intentionally not I don't even know. I'm not gonna even say intentionally because when I go and eat now, like normally I'll be like, oh, I want the fried this with the extra carbs, 2 on the side, and all of this stuff. But I purposely like look automatically for like the healthier option. And it's because I'm looking in the mirror and I'm
Yeah.
finally seeing the results that I've been wanting to see.
Yeah.
But it's because of that dedication and that time. And it does hurt
Yeah.
because Danny don't play. But I now this workout is a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
And literally, like they say, it takes so many days to build this habit. So I wake up every day at 5:20. And I was just telling Danny, like when I don't work out 3 times out the week and I don't have to wake up at 5:20, it makes it very hard when I do have to go work out because I have to wake up at 5:20. So now what I do is Monday through Friday, regardless whether I'm going to the gym or not, I'm waking up at 5:20
Okay.
so that it's easier. So yeah, health and fitness. At first, we wasn't friends, but we best friends now.
Yeah.
So
I love
yeah.
that. And I changed my diet at the beginning of the pandemic. I went vegetarian. So I did it for a year and then so 2020 to 2021. And then I got a little loose with it last year. This year I'm actually like back to eating meat, not as much, but more so than what I was. But it's funny because I don't know if you know Zakiya and Ebony, but I know you do. So shout out to them. Kiss Me Honey.
Yeah.
And
I know them.
So I would go out to eat with Ebony, and Ebony would be like, "Oh, I can't have this. I can't have that because my stomach." And I'm like, "I wish my body would trip if I ate something that was like unhealthy." And now, 2 years later, it's like, my body is like that where I am looking for the vegetarian option, even though I do eat a little more meat now. But I'm always like, that's my go-to, or I'm trying to have meals where there's no meat in it, or just something that's a lot more healthier.
Yeah.
And like you said, my relationship with my body and my health has changed a lot just because of that. And then also having my own schedule and stuff, like working out, I have to be up at the gym. I try to be out of the gym by 9. So if that means I'm going at 7:30 out at 8:30, if I'm going at 8 out at 9, like if I don't, then my day is just messed up. Like it's just not there. And even like Fridays, right? So getting up in the morning, going to the gym. I usually have a therapy appointment, and then being able to go to the gym, come home for a little bit, shower, get ready for my therapy appointment, go to the therapy appointment, and then come home a little bit and rest or get ready for the show, and then come here for the show is so different than getting up just in time for the show or getting up just in time for therapy. So just having that like little moment, in the beginning, and I don't like waking up early, but I can't fight it now. So that's something that I've learned, even more recently, just like listening to my body, and then also like instead of trying to cram everything into one time period, like showing myself more grace and waking up a little more early or having a little more discipline with that so that I'm not like agitated during the day or like, oh, I just feel like I'm running around and I don't have sense of time and stuff like that.
Yeah. Starting your day with you.
Yeah.
Starting yourself doing something for you, for your body, for your mind, for your spirit. You know, like that's the major plug. That's the key.
No, it really is. And I played basketball my whole life. And I feel like now I'm starting to have a different relationship with working out where it's like it is that like self-love, self-care piece. So yeah, that's that. We'll go into one more question. Now this one is something that I hear on social media all the time. It's the strong Black woman like trope or strong Black woman narrative. I have my feelings on it, but what do you guys feel? I know you guys been seeing kind of the conversations around that, like how Black women may not like to be called strong Black women?
I have not
I
seen
haven't
them.
seen that.
No.
I mean, I told you about my
Oh,
life.
right,
I
you
just-
haven't
Well,
been
yeah,
on-
you haven't, but I haven't.
But you've
seen
been
that.
on social media.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot
I
of
seen the Queen
conversation.
thing.
Well, yeah, I've seen the Queen thing too, but there's a lot of conversation around, like, Taraji had posted something, and then just a lot of like just other pages have been posting like, "Yo, we're tired of being called the strong Black woman. Like, we don't want to be that anymore. We don't want to carry that trope. Like, you guys have made it to where it's not, we're not people anymore. Like, you just think that we can carry the weight of the world on us, because you guys put strong in front of our title." But like, with hearing that, how does that make you feel? Or is being a strong Black woman something that you identify with? Or
I'd say I identify as strong, period, but not in the strong Black woman type of way, because
right,
at least the way that I have experienced that and seen that, it is very much about kind of like our conversation earlier about just kind of like, oh, let me just pour into others. Let me take this. Oh, I didn't do this for me yet, but let me go do this for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I just got in. I'm a little tired, but I know my family didn't eat. So I'm still going to like push myself to bust out this big, this big meal prepared for them, even though I'm exhausted and I'm tired and I have it, as opposed to like ordering something out. Because as a mother, I can't, if I'm not cooking for my family, if I'm not feeding them that way, if I'm not feeding my husband in that way, then I'm not a good wife. I'm not a good mother, right? Nah, well, whatever. You ate, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't subscribe to that. I am strong. I am Black. I am a woman. But I don't identify as under that gaze of like needing to be a strong Black woman.
Yeah.
The way that it's presented in the media. No.
Yeah, I agree too. And then, so what would you say? Where are you strong?
I'm surviving.
Yeah.
Life is layered. There's so many different experiences that we all have, and I think in my early 20s I realized like, oh, maybe even before that, like, oh, it's not just me. Like, everybody's life is just as layered and complex as mine is. Like, everyone thinks that it's just like your story. Like, everybody has their own story and you kind of operate out of that story, but everybody has different things, and your thing may not be my thing. It may look different, but we're all navigating so much.
Yeah.
So I'm strong. I'm here. I'm surviving. I'm growing. I'm putting work into myself.
Yeah.
Putting work into myself makes me strong. Being vulnerable makes me strong. Crying and falling out makes me strong. Like, all of those things make me strong. Strength doesn't mean that you can't cry or have fear or experience pain.
Yeah.
Strength is experiencing that and then getting up and doing what you do, what you want to do, what you feel like you have capacity to do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. That's good. How about you?
I think strength is definitely not giving up in whatever way that may be. And I don't think I do say strong, but I say other words too. So like, when I didn't do it a lot, but because I used to be that person that like didn't feel so great about myself if I made one little mistake, or if I messed up, I was so like, it would take me probably a whole day to recover from me making a mistake, like perfectionist type thing. But now when I say things, I don't just say strong, but I'll say I'm beautiful, or I'm courageous, or I'm mad, or whatever you're feeling. I feel like I'm all of those things. But I think one thing that I'm not is a quitter. Like, I'm not going to quit or give up on anything, even if it doesn't work. Like, it didn't work. You started a company, the company doesn't work, you dissolve it. It doesn't mean that you quit. It didn't work, you're going to try something else, and then that's the next continuation of that.
Right.
So I think that I think I think people use the word you're a strong Black woman to make it insinuate something to show strength, but I think that they're using the word strength in like, I didn't cry, I wasn't sad today, I actually made $1,000 today, but you're strong just because you like got out the bed today and you walked to the kitchen to make a bagel, like whatever. So
yes, I love that. And then, how do you feel like you're strong, or just
I think I'm strong by, again, just not giving up, because it's so easy to do that.
Yeah.
And it could be on the smallest scale. You could give up because on relationships, you can give up on love, you can give up on friendship, you can give up on something because something didn't work the way that you intended it to. But also, I like to keep pushing forward because I always think that if something didn't happen, it just wasn't that time. Maybe the time wasn't when I was 18 or 21 to graduate from college. Maybe the time was to graduate when you're 40.
Right.
Maybe the time to buy a house is when you're 50, or maybe the time is not to buy a house. Maybe you are meant to be a great renter. I don't know. Anything. Like,
Yes.
that's, it's your life. Live it the way you want to live it.
Yeah. And I think even with the whole conversation about like not giving up, I think we have to be intentional about like what are we not giving up, like not giving up on life.
Yeah.
Like choosing, because the suicide thing has been like roaming rampant in our community, so especially as of lately, but deciding that leaving a marriage or leaving a place of work or changing your career, that's not the giving up, right? Because you're still choosing yourself at the end of the day. So I think being strong is opting to choose yourself, no matter what you have to quit or what you have to let go. Choose yourself like in those moments. And I think that's, a thing like that makes us strong. I think that, as we talked about our generation, like we're not going to just take the don't do this because I said so, or don't do this because they said so, but how does this benefit me? And if it doesn't, I'm going to give myself the choice to walk away from it and then choose myself and then allow myself to flourish somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I think that's a thing. But yeah, the strong Black woman conversation has been coming up a lot, and most of us are somewhat tired of it. I don't, know where I necessarily sit on them. Like, you could say it or whatever, but do know that there has to be context put with it.
Yeah.
And then don't also expect for me to be like a rag doll.
Yeah.
Like that's not what strength is, because that to me is just not really having like discernment and not being able to have boundaries. And also being strong is having boundaries and knowing how to keep your boundaries up.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. I want to thank you all for coming on the show.
Thanks
Talking
for
about being a Black woman.
Jinx. That's my twin right there. Right.
So I want to leave basically with like something that you would want to like say to Black women or say to yourself, or something just like a love piece or whatever. I know I didn't tell you guys that I was going to do this. I just thought about it, but
I'll make mine short and simple. And if we're talking to Black women, I would leave with, you got this, girl. You got this, girl. Literally, whatever it is. I don't care if it's creating your very first camera or taking a walk that you haven't done in a long time. Whatever it is, you got this, because putting one foot in front of the other is the first step to doing anything. Right. So you got this, girl. That's mine.
Yeah.
I like that. I was like, ooh, I felt that I had a physical response to that. I would say, Black women, you have eminent value just because you exist, because you breathe. You have eminent value. And also practice and play what it means to sweet talk yourself. I've been kind of meditating on what that means. I heard it in the song and I was like, sweet talk myself. What does that mean? Because you're in relationship with people and you sweet talk your significant other, or you might like really pour into your friends, but like really turn that back on yourself and say like, what would it be like to sweet talk myself, to like whisper sweet nothings in my own ear in a way, and just love up on yourself in that way and just see what that feels like, see what happens.
I like that.
Yes,
do that.
So
Talk
too.
myself tonight.
Right. Right. So sweet talk yourself and then you got it. And I think it's, my thing, what I've been saying to people, Black people in general, or just people that ask, like I moved away from telling non-Black people how dope Black people are and trying to advocate like, oh, we're beautiful or we deserve to live. I'm like, no, my work exists to affirm the Black person. Like I am a new Black history maker, or watch us make history. Like that's from the group to the group, or from the self to the self. So that's it. My thing is just like, find beauty in yourself. Like, that's the thing where I would want for all of us to just grab that. And we all have it, it's just about you realizing it and not letting like society or the people around you kind of dictate it, or not finding value in other people's perceptions of you, but really finding value in the facts that you know about yourself. So that's that. We are excited to wrap up episode 8. It's been going by so fast, but Make sure you guys are tuning in to the other shows. Make sure if you did not get to catch this whole episode that you are watching it back and send it to somebody. Send it to a Black woman or someone that's not a Black woman and let them know about some of our perspectives and stuff. You can download the app, the Good News Radio Network, so that you can keep up with us in the chat room. Thank you to Mysterious Jackson, Devontae, and DJ Gamma Ray for tapping in with us. I think that's it. But yeah, catch us next week. All this month, we're Black women. I think it's only going to be Black women. It's going to be women for sure, but I think it's only going to be Black women. Next week, we're going to talk about HBCUs, PWIs, and sororities. So we're going to have a few different women here who have different experiences that we want to talk about Black women and our differences as it relates to like that college kind of like culture and legacy kind of thing. So make sure you tune in next week. That is it for us today. And I gotta set this video up. I forgot to say that. But yeah. Thank you.
You got it, girl.
Yeah.
Without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. You know, these are guys of our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, Black child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow